Alright, Shalom. I'd like to say Kahalayim, Wahawadla, Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Shai, Basham Rakakwadash, double honors the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of Ruel. Peace and blessing to the Akimani will that push the truth to the four corners of the earth. Right, there's Brother Yarba here. And I said I'd go through go through this topic based on uproars of the people, right? So the second is just 9, I'll start from 3, right? It said, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and that's something we see in a lot of, you understand? It have a lot of earthquakes going on, and it have a large amount of uproars. You know, the scriptures doesn't specify exactly what will cause the uproars, but right now it have a lot of uproars going on right now around the world. One of the reasons is for what? See, thousands across the UK, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, Canada, and more condemn racism and demand justice at global Black Lives Matter protests. You understand? Concerning this whole George Floyd situation that happened. You know, which a lot of other people died in similar ways in the past, but you know, the Lord just chose this time to actually make it take effect, because it could have happened with all those other people that died similar ways, you know. But the Lord has said everything has a time and a season, right? And now is the time that He actually making them, you know, rise up against the things that happening. You understand? He actually putting it in the hearts now to be like this, to fulfill prophecy, because these uproars must happen, right? It said George Floyd spent the last few moments of his life lying on the ground, handcuffed, with his neck pinned under the knee of a white Minneapolis police officer who ordered him to relax, as the 46-year-old black man gasped, "Please, I can't breathe." It say anger over Floyd's death on May 25th has bubbled over into protests across the United States, calling for an end to police brutality and justice. It's saying those demonstrations have gone global. Right? One example is what? The UK. It's in the United Kingdom, hundreds of demonstrators reported at Trafalgar Square in London, with people kneeling in solidarity at 1 p.m. Sunday local time. It said this despite mass gathering being prohibited in the country as part of its coronavirus response, right? You see here, it say hundreds gather for Black Lives Matter protests at Trafalgar Square. Everyone kneeling, chanting, "No justice, no peace." Right now, a lot of people here you will see who appear white. They necessarily wouldn't be white. Some of them might be Jakes. A lot of them might be Jakes. You understand? And some others might be white, but you know, they might be trying to put on a good image, you know, or trying to make it appear that they want peace. Really and truly, America was mostly built for what? White people. It was so-called white people, not Jakes. You understand? It wasn't built for us. But anytime anything happens, they like to calm the situation so it could go back to the time when, you know, they were on top and we just had to get the shitty end of the stick all the time. So they don't really like us, you know, being aggressive, and they had to be living in fear of actually something happening to them, or some so-called black person had to go up and just punch them in the face for no reason. They like the feeling of being safe around them. Right now, a lot of so-called whites, they're very uneasy about what it is going on. They like when blacks that had nothing but love for them and would do anything that they say, and they could do the blacks anything that they want and get away with it. You understand? Situations like this going on right now, they don't like that. They wanted to go back where the so-called blacks was more or less asleep. You understand? And not really fighting for anything, not really trying to defend anything. They were just going along with anything that happens. That's how they like them to be. Right? U.S. Embassy. Alright? Another gathering here by the U.S. Embassy. It said people were seen carrying signs that read justice for George Floyd. They say racism has no place, enough is enough, and Black Lives Matter. They say they chanted, I can't breathe, and no justice, no peace, and marched to Grenfell town. They say which was felled by a fire in 2017, causing 72 deaths. Right? They say protesters also walked to the U.S. Embassy in Battersea, BBC reported, and was seen in Manchester and Cardiff. Right? They say Black Lives Matter demonstrators gathered at Hyde Park on Wednesday before marching through London to Victoria Station, where they held up signs seeking justice for Belly Mujinga, a railway worker who died after being spat on by a man who claimed to have the coronavirus. So you have a lot of injustice going on towards so-called blacks in many different places that are controlled by white people. You understand? And the blacks are more or less the lower people in society. In the UK is no different, right? UK is similar to America in situations like that. They said the crowd prosecution service had made it a crime offense to weaponize COVID-19, but the case was closed last month, Politico said, right? It's an emotional John Boyega of Star Wars fame led a chant of no justice, no peace, and assured other black people we have always meant something. Now, like I say, all of them right now, we have a lot of them that actually might be jakes, and then some of them they just trying to calm the situation. You understand? Because it have a lot of so-called white people being affected by these things. A lot of white businesses being burned down. You know, they're trying to calm the situation so it could go back into a way that, you know, they could continue to be comfortable in their place. It's a Haley Ott, right? It's a Black lives have always mattered. We have always been important. Now, how she's saying we, I don't know if she's referring to herself. And that is something a lot of these white people doesn't understand. According to the scriptures, your genealogy does go back to your father, not your mother. Alright, I'll get that. That is Numbers 1 verse 18, right? It say, and they assemble all their congregations together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigree after their families by the house of their fathers. It say, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upwards by their polls, because really is your father's lineage is what determines what you are. If your father is from the nation of Israel and he carries the seed, whatever his seed goes into will be also from the nation of Israel. So your father is like the seed, and for those who might be, you know, new, so your father is like the seed and your mother is like the soil. No matter what soil you plant an apple in, an apple seed in, it will come out an apple. The soil doesn't determine what you are, it's the seed determines what you are. So these so-called white people who might be intermingling, and you know, they might say the mother is black, so they're black, but the father is an Edomite. If your father is an Edomite, you're an Edomite. It doesn't matter what complexion of skin you might have. You only are what your father is. If your lineage of your father goes back to a Jake, then you're a Jake. If your lineage of your father goes back to an Edomite, you're an Edomite. If your lineage of your father goes back to a Moabite, a Chinese, you're Chinese. It doesn't matter what you mix with. right? They say black lives have always mattered. They say we have always been important. We have always meant something. We have always succeeded regardless. Alright, I'm gonna read the whole thing. And that's what a lot of these other nations do. They just try to mix with our nation to try to feel like one of us. But unless they are actually from the descendancy lineage, they will never be one of us. Alright, let me see. Germany. Alright, I'm gonna read every single thing because the article kind of long. Alright, I'll read this part. It says, according to the Sky News, it said the protest began successfully, but at one point, emotions ran high, and objects and punches were thrown at police. It said people then calmed down again. Now, I was hearing somebody actually telling me something about this, that the police is actually be seeing people protesting peacefully and deliberately be doing things to make them hostile, like shooting them with rubber bullets for no reason, throwing tear gas at them for no reason, and then the people has become hostile afterwards, when really and truly they started off peacefully. So the police themselves and all have a cause in some riots becoming hostile because they being hostile to the people, you know. But all of that could be a reason just to, you know. And there's not something that the news does show. The news doesn't show that the police has attacked them first. The news does just show when they actually start being hostile. Right, Germany. It's saying in Germany, the scene was a familiar one. It's a crowd gathered at the U.S. Embassy in Berlin on Saturday. It's a graffiti. It's the artist also sprayed Floyd's image on a stretch on the wall that divided the German capital city for decades during the Cold War. They say the next day the crowd demanded justice in front of the Brandenburg gates. It said justice can't wait. Black futures matter. Right? It says suffocate the racists, and we are all the same and equal. It say their signs read, right? Our next one was in what? France. Our next one was in Italy. Our next one was in Ireland, Poland. You understand? These things happening all over. And all of that is a part of prophecy. And we see in a lot of prophecies happening at the same time. Right? A lot of prophecies happening at the same time. All over the world. And that is to show you how these things are signs at the end, because it say Matthew 24:7. It say, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famine and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, right? Hold on. All these things you're actually seeing right now happening around the world at the same exact time, right? Yeah, and the Lord make it in a way because of technology that you could actually see it happening. So back in the past, we couldn't be able to see earthquakes happening around the world. You know, if one person did happen to journey from Israel to somewhere else, after about 10 days, you might end up hearing it had an earthquake in this place, or it had an earthquake in that place. But the Lord actually make it in a way now through technology that we could actually see it happening in all these different places. You could go on YouTube or go on some kind of alternative news or even on normal news sometimes, and you could be able to hear or find out that it had an earthquake right in China, and we nowhere near China. And it's the same thing like with these uproars that we're seeing right now, which are also prophecies. All these things like rumors of wars, we could actually see these things happening because of technology. And we're seeing uproars happening in places that we nowhere close to. You understand? Because the Lord made it possible for these signs to be manifest through what? Technology. So even being here in Trinidad right now, we know it have earthquake, we know it have uproars happening in Italy, in Ireland, in Poland, in Denmark. You understand? The Lord made it possible so that when these things actually do happen, we will be able to know that it's happening. You understand? So all these things are signs of what? The end. Because we see all these things that we read in prophecy about rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places, uproars of the people, all these things happening in diverse places at the same exact time. And nothing is coincidence. You understand? But this to show you how simple the Lord could make these things happen. In Israel, in Sudan, you understand? It can't be a coincidence that this happening in so many places. Even though the Lord could use different means to actually start it, the fact that it's happening and it's happening on such a wide scale, there's not just a small coincidence. All these things showing the signs at the end. Right? In Canada, it's closer to home. In Canada, it's a protests. Protests were also sparked by the death of Regis Korchinski Paquette, a 29-year-old black woman who fell from her balcony and died on Wednesday as police were investigating the domestic incident at her building. It's the demonstrators in Toronto on Saturday in honor of, we see the name already. It's a Dovetfield, which calls to end racism around the world. So even around in a lot of different places, it have a lot of injustice to so-called black people, and this whole situation with Floyd just sparked it worldwide, and everybody started to lash out for similar reasons. Right? South Africa. Look at how many countries, and this is in the space of what? Already the apostles already deemed this year what? The year of prophecy. In just the space of what? This is happening in May in June. You understand? This a couple of days, because I think it was May the 20 something or something like that, and right now we're in June 5th. In just a few days, right now, it have protesting around the world over Black lives, and it have it on an extreme scale where you're actually seeing buildings being burned down, people looting, people rioting, people fighting, beating each other to death, so forth and so forth. Brazil, New Zealand. Like I said, the article long. If I had to read through this whole thing, it would take a very long time. But I'll post the article in the description so a person could always read it if they want. Australia. So China and Iran pointed out the irony in the US's criticism of their treatment of protesters, which is true, because the US has always criticized other countries and how they just deal with certain people and certain situations when they are worse than everything else. The US is some of the worst hypocrites you could find. Some of the worst. Right? Anyway, I hope it was edifying. You know, all these things are good signs, even though it might be scary signs to actually go through, especially being in closer situations like this. We know that these are signs at the end, and the end is what the people of the Lord wants, because for one kingdom to rise, another must fall. Right? So this kingdom has to go down for the kingdom of the Lord to actually be established. You know, I was edifying. With that, I say shalom.